Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pass the Syrup, the podcast from the Agents Movement Initiative. A light-hearted look at all the waffle that we see, we hear, we're sick and tired of around the estate agency world. We try and pour a little syrup over it to make it a little bit more palatable. This week, 3 more fantastic guests. I'll do it in the order that I see you on screen. So we have Frances Bowling, Frances with an E,
Yes.
obviously because it's female Frances, ops director from Fine and Country and Moss Properties up in sunny Doncaster. 11 years in estate agency. Amazing
I don't
experience.
look old enough.
You look too young. How can you have 11 years experience at the tender age of 24? I don't know.
Exactly.
But that's how hard they work you lot up north.
Yeah.
And I like that. I've got time for that. How are you, Frances?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me today, Ben. I'm really looking forward to it. Love to have a light-hearted conversation and see how everybody else is getting on as well, because as I mentioned to you earlier, I tend to just stick to what I do and stay in my lane.
Oh, Frances is gonna tell how it is. Good, great to have you on. Very nice. Next up, we have Chris Thew from Mackay. What the mistake I made there was trying to say Christopher and realizing on Zoom you've called yourself Chris, and so I can call you Chris.
Chris is fine. It's fine, no problem.
Chris Thew from Sales Director for Mackay. Our most experienced guest today, 19 years experience. That is absolutely phenomenal. Glutton for punishment, clearly. Mackay is a 7-branch business, Brighton Hove area. Chris is the Sales Director. Chris, how's it going?
Yeah, very good, very good. I've been watching you on LinkedIn, Ben, and when I got the approach, I thought it'd be really interesting to kind of see this, because I think one of the things that you say is about sort of like getting through the waffle and the white noise. And from my perspective, I think it's really, really important that, you know, us as property professionals, let's use that word, are able to educate the general public out there. I think it's really, really important because everyone loves, or the media loves a bad news story, right? And I think it's really important that we can kind of push through that. And from my perspective, you know, leading a sales team, I think it's really, really important that we can kind of educate them. So sharing best practices, hearing what other guys up and down the country are experiencing, I think is a really good thing. So thanks for the invite, Ben.
Well, thanks for coming. Me and Chris, like so many estate agents up and down the land, we're sort of social media friends, social buddies. Because yeah, I mean, I guess that's what social media is meant to be. And actually, it just tells you how far I think the estate agency has come. Because 20 years ago, I cannot imagine as a junior estate agent being encouraged by my manager to go be friends with other agents. We were too busy hiding keys. So yeah, the world has come a long way. Great to have you here, Chris. And then finally, we are joined by Toby Martin, who's looking fresh as a daisy. I've got to say, he's obviously fully recovered from a bout of sickness. We won't go into too much detail. Please, Toby, do not go into too much detail.
Sure?
I'm sure. General manager of Reside in Bath, the letting agency, 12 years experience. Or maybe you want to give us some details. Toby, over to you. If you want to do the details, share with the world.
All I'll say is it's a measure of what an honour it is to be here, that I have come off my sick bed after a wave of gastroenteritis to be with you.
Well, I'm glad you said you came off the sick bed. I thought you were
I was
else.
waiting for what was
The 3 of us out there. Wow, we've gone straight there.
Yeah, I woke up this morning and I felt a little bit queasy, and my first thought was, I'm not going to be on Pass the Syrup. And then I gave myself a slap around the face and come on, Toby, you can't miss an opportunity like this. So the next 60 to 90 minutes could prove really interesting. I'm very happy to bring an element of jeopardy to the show.
Wow, roll the dice. This is, I mean, that right there, though, we have got, so we look for the social media clips, obviously, to let the world know this wonderful podcast is taking place. And you woke up this morning, the first thing you thought is, I'm not going to make it onto Pass the Syrup, the podcast. The relief that probably waved over you. I don't have to bother. I feel that every Tuesday morning I wake up thinking, what excuse can I make? But I can't. I've got you here. So great to have you here. Thanks for suffering through. Oh, see what I did there, Chris? Wow, that was pretty good. Dad joke. Let's start with Sam Offley. We're going to start with so really positive, although his mentee issue this week that he would like some advice from you guys on is, I think it's positive. I see them in advance. It's something that always makes me laugh. But for a lot of people, it's a negative and it stresses them out. So I'm going to play it for you guys and you can give us some feedback. Let's share our screen.
Hello, Pastor Syrup guests. Now, my question to you this week is, what advice would you give someone who's struggling to handle negative comments on social media?
What a
Okay,
great question.
I've had experience of this
All
firsthand.
right. Go on,
When
Francis, tell us.
I first started doing videos 8 years ago or so, and I'm probably still the only agent now doing it in Doncaster. But for some reason, people were obsessed with my eyebrows. Obsessed. Like the comments that I got were just ridiculous. So the next time I went to my beautician, I basically did a vlog. And I put a video up to say, you know, who wants to sponsor the eyebrows? So for me, it's don't ignore them. If not, respond 10 times better. And just, yeah, it's not bad. Sometimes you can take it personally. You have got to get thick skin, I think, in this industry anyway. But yeah, I think you've always got to respond to them, whether it's, you know, with statistics, whether it's banter, something being a bit funny, but it's feedback. There's some very sad people in this world that if you offer to meet them or call them to discuss the comment that they've made, you'll find they probably delete it and you'll never hear from them again.
Hold on, though. Were you trying to call people to discuss your eyebrows?
I offered.
I just want to say that is arguably the best response to trolling I've ever heard in my entire life. That they're not happy with my eyebrows. I'm gonna make a documentary about my eyebrows. Have I just disappeared?
Yeah.
Nice. This is good.
I've
This
got
is
a
good
cartoon
stuff.
cat instead now.
I know, yeah.
What? I got nothing. I don't know what's happening right now.
Are you going to do the rest of the episode as a cat?
Yeah,
It says looking for the phone.
looking for the phone. Is that what
You're
that
looking for
says?
the phone?
Just a wagging tail at the moment.
You know what? Whilst I've disappeared, first technical hitch episode. Oh, I'm back.
You're back.
Wow.
You're back.
I was sorry. It was intentional. I was just making sure my eyebrows were okay. So yeah, that's the best response I've ever heard. Make a little documentary about it and throw them back. I've got to say, I think you've got great eyebrows.
Thank you.
I
They have
understand
evolved over the years, so maybe I
Oh,
did
right.
take on board some, you know, comments that were there, but yeah, they've evolved now.
So they helped you improve your eyebrow. I mean, okay, all right. Chris, what do you think?
Do you know what? I'm fortunate. I've never experienced it myself. I've got a bit thick-skinned over the years. I only focus on what we do as a business and what my people do. I'm only speaking sort of like business-wise here, I guess. I've got two beautiful children, and they're obviously going to grow up in the social media world. I'm fortunate enough that I've never had to experience it firsthand or anyone that I know. So that's important. But I think having the awareness of what the power it can do and the power of words people can say, I think is really, really important. You know, you Francis, you talk about sticking in your lane. That's something that I teach my teams. You know, I've been kind of really, really, you know, making sure that we block out negativity from the industry, or whether it be from competitors, and let's stay infinite. You know, if you stay infinite, you're never ever going to disappear. So I think from my perspective, it's I think if people ever do take it, I think that the person that is sending it, I think, has got to take a long, hard look in the mirror. But from my perspective, you know, I teach my teams be infinite. I've never had it in business, not that I know of anyway. I'm sure people speak about me. And from my perspective, bring it on, no problems. I'm happy to be spoken about. It means we're a force to be reckoned with. So, you know.
Stay infinite. I've got to say, that's one of my favourite 2-word quotes I think I've ever heard. Is that your own, Chris, or have you pinched that from someone?
Well, when I hold my managers' meetings, I try and open with a video of some sort, because I'm also equally aware that as a leader, I could be viewed as white noise, right? And I think it's important that, you know, that the stuff that I put out there, that they actually genuinely believe and they see it. And I played a video about staying infinite in a managers' meeting. Must have been February, March time, and it really resonated with the period of time where we, you know, let's be honest, it's been a tough old marketplace, but being resilient and being infinite and sticking in your lane, and most importantly, staying classy, I think is really, really important. So yeah, it's what I use is be infinite.
Yeah, I love it. I really love it. In fact, after this, if you would share it with me, and we'll attach it to the notes on this episode, because that is a brilliant motto. Stay infinite. Also, did anyone catch Stay Classy San Diego? There was San Diego coming in. Did we have a Ron Burgundy moment there for us?
No, it's just it was something that something that I've always said is, I'll never retaliate to anything. If people want to talk about me, brilliant. That's brilliant. It just makes us even stronger. So stay infinite, staying in our lane, and staying to sticking to our DNA. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, it's good. It's great. It's I think you're comfortable taking the moral high ground, which is a great place to be. And I think probably what you're talking about is what we're, completely biased opinion here. Mentees I've dealt with are a bit younger than me and less experienced, and are probably more reactive when things come at them, and they don't have maybe the years in the tank that I've got and the life experience that allows me to say it's quite funny. So we had we posted a video where someone said, "Why does your face do that when you talk?" Honestly, I thought that this is gold. People don't talk to me. I haven't played football in years. I haven't been in a rugby locker room in years where people fire this sort of abuse at me. I'm all about this life. I'm quite happy to be abused. But I'm also conscious that people, it pains me to say it, 20 years younger than me are probably, slightly different, grow up in a different time. So, great advice, Chris. Stay classy.
Yeah.
Brighton and Hove. Toby, what do you think?
Yeah. The word thick-skinned is doing a lot of hard work here. And that's what it's all about. The sad fact of the matter is, this is where we are now. If you put yourself out there on the internet enough, the chances are that at some point you'll come across somebody quite unpleasant, a bit of a troll. And I think Francis is right. It's great to always reply to them. It's an opportunity for you to show what a great person you are. You kill them with kindness. You never take the bait, never get embroiled in the argument. Rise above it, and if you can deal with it with humor and humility, all the better. And I, before my 12 years not out in agency, I was a secondary school teacher, and when you've got a grounding in something like that, and you've had 14-year-old kids threatening your family and trying to say that they're going to find out where you live because you asked them to do a word search, then you need a thick skin in this line of work. And if you've got something in your background, some kind of grounding that helps you to develop that thick skin, then all the better. But if you haven't, then I think you've got to just take a no fear approach, because I think the danger is, for me, the greatest traction on my videos is when I post them in community Facebook groups. And that takes a real leap of faith to do, because you know that everyone and anyone is going to watch that video. And for all the people who watch it, enjoy it, but don't bother commenting, there's going to be someone who does watch it, doesn't like it, and does comment. And you just got to let it run off you. And I think that one of the best things I heard somebody do, and I think Francis alluded to it, is these people just inhabit the online world. And if you invite them into the real world, they very quickly disappear. And one of my friends had a really abusive commenter online, and she said, "Come in, meet us, come and have a chat with us, but let's talk about our differences. Let's see the work we do, see how much we care." And obviously, did they want to do that? Of course not. They scurried away back where they came from. I think that's a great approach, because it to anyone looking at that, you've made a really magnanimous offer, which is 99% likely not to be accepted. And hey, if they do stroll into your office, then have a good chat with them. Why not? But yeah, thick skin, and be prepared to reply with humility and humor, and it often doesn't escalate from there.
Yeah, it says more about that person, doesn't it? Ultimately, than anyone else. Yeah,
completely. But yeah, we're learning some stuff here. Toby getting threatened by 14-year-olds that are going to kill his family. That is, no wonder you wanted to become I mean, most people try and get out of a state agency. You're trying to get in. That's
This is my safe place. Yeah,
this is your safe
I've
place.
got lots of
walk
lovely
in the
stories
park.
from I've got lots of lovely stories from being bullied by children in schools when you've got time for them. But that was genuinely one of them. Little kids didn't like being given a word search, decided to threaten me.
Come spend the day at my house. I've got 3 kids that do that to me 24/7. I'm just like that. I'm used to it. This is the world I live in now. All I would add in terms of advice from what I've seen online is I get the trolls who claim that I'm being dishonest. And so when I present data, our data is pulled directly from either from a portal or from 20EA or a legitimate data source. And so all I would say is don't embellish, don't overdo it, present the facts, present them how you want to present them, make your argument. Clickbait is the new current trend, but actually Tony Blair's government were the best spin doctors 20 years ago. So it's always been there. Present the data however you want to, but don't embellish, don't lie, don't make it up. And then when the troll says, well, this can't be true, I've seen, the headline in the Daily Mail says this, then you can just give them the data. And it really, really quickly brings a conversation to a conclusion because you're just giving your data source and your data. The community groups, I hadn't really, that's an interesting place to live. All sorts. I mean, they're entertaining this. It's like the trade press. You come for the stories, you stay for the comments.
Absolutely.
The abuse is rife. All I would say is use them appropriately. If you're going to be one of the agents that posts, we just sold this property into a community group, expect to get a bit of pushback because that's not what the groups are for. But if you use the group the way it's meant to be, we use the groups much more for the charity work we do than anything else. It's really difficult to be negative about someone raising money for charity.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of play in the game. But I don't, the final thing is don't let trolls put you off creating content, because I'm afraid the future of a state agency, as we were discussing before this podcast, is content creation. There's so much required to be relevant, to be to create a familiarity with the community you're trying to engage with, and they spend their evenings on social media. So you need to be there. Don't be scared of that.
Yeah.
Great advice, guys. That's a really good start. Normally, Sam Offley gets about a minute of advice from each, and so we've done 15 minutes. That's really good. So it tells me we're going to really struggle to get through all 3 subjects, but that's okay. Let's get straight on to big chunky subject number 1. So in May, HMRC reported that property transactions were down, just over 80,000 property transactions. That is a reduction of 27% versus May last year, May 2022. And it's a whopping 3% lower than April this year. So it's a headline grabber, right? Transactions are down 27% year on year. But what I read in several places, so we're talking to trade press, which is talking to us, and I think it's worth bearing that in mind, that they expect, I think, the estate agency world to understand what they're reading and don't provide quite as much context. But actually, consumer-facing media also doesn't provide context for why you might find that data. So is this headline grabbing stuff? What's your take on this news story? Francis, kick off with you.
Of course, transactions are going to be down compared to a year ago. We was just coming out of that crazy COVID pandemic, interest rates being all-time low. They're absolutely going to be, they're going to be down in comparison, 3% from the month before. I think people are adjusting to the new normal. And I think a lot of it's coming down to affordability at the moment. So people are being a bit more hesitant, but it's the doom and gloom that gets reported day in, day out. The recession's come in, repossessions are going up. It's all the negative. That's what news is about generally in any industry. But as I mentioned to you previously, Ben, when we first joined this call, for me, it's business as usual. I'm staying in my lane and I'm controlling what I can control. I can't control what's being reported, but what I can control is how many calls I'm going to make today, or how many videos I'm going to put out today, what information and stories am I going to be sharing, how am I going to do my presentation, how am I going to help somebody today. They're the things that I can control. And I hate the news. I don't have any apps. I don't have any notifications. I purposely turn it over on an evening because it's just negativity I don't need in my life.
Bad news, bad news. But no, I deleted my Sky News app about a year ago because I mean, they're relentless. And as I said a moment ago, the clickbait is just such a trend right now. Everything is a headline that, I mean, they capture me. As soon as I see the headline, I'm only human. I have to open it. So I've prevented myself from seeing those headlines. And you're right. Bad news is what's going to capture people.
And I just think things get exaggerated as well. You know, it's Halifax have reported this, Nationwide have reported this. Well, that's a very small portion of the actual whole market as well. But
well, I mean,
because the figures are, you know, drastic, it's going to appear doom and gloom.
But I don't know if you remember, it was only 3 months ago or 4 months ago that Nationwide reported house prices going up and Halifax reported house prices going down within 10 days of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, do me a favor. Could that be more confusing?
Absolutely.
I get it's a confusing time out there right now. Chris, what's your take on it?
Do you know what exactly this? Is it any wonder when transactions are down when you get so many conflicted different news stories, right? I think it's, and that's the bit that I try and teach my, you know, or to coach my teams is, it's our role and it's our social responsibility to, you know, get out to the general public and push through it all, what is actually happening out there right now. And I genuinely think it's our job to educate them. And I think, you know, is it any surprise? No, I sit here as a sales director and I can see that the market is given a bit of a kick in. We've got interest rates at their highest point for 15 odd years now. So I think from my perspective, is this any surprise? No. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers do in the next quarter as well, especially the next quarter, because I think that will probably really tell a story. But I think what's really, really important is, you know, there's still a desire out there. If you can understand the client's pain, the client's needs, the client's motivations, their desires, why they want to move, that's our job to educate them and help them move. And Francis just said, you know, let's be real about this. You know, we've been cruise control. So 15 out of the 19 years that I've done estate agency, we've had interest rates at an all-time record low. You know, I guess we were all kidding ourselves to think that could continue. And I guess that we were just living in this kind of like this low interest rate bubble, weren't we? But I think we now need to adjust and realise that this is probably what it's going to be like. Affordability is a real factor. I don't know about you, but I'm a bit of a sad old git. I look at the price of milk from what it was sort of like a year ago to where it is now. And my kids drink milk like anything. Food inflation is the biggest thing out there, which is killing people's affordability, isn't it? Right. So I think, you know, it's no surprise to me, Ben. I don't think we can dwell on it. I think it's important to always. When I first joined the industry, something that I was always told was bricks and mortar will always pay. And it will always be one of the most sound investments that you can ever go into. And I still, to this very day, genuinely believe that. You know, 19 years into this industry, you know, bricks and mortar will always be a safe pair of hands, and it's a safe investment. So I think from my perspective, let's not worry about it. You know, transaction levels are going to be down. House prices, okay. I think Nationwide, I think they reported a soft land, or going to report a soft landing. Great, that's fine. But let's focus on transaction levels, helping people, helping clients, getting through their pains, their needs, and their desires about why they really, really want to move right now. And that's the thing that I'm pushing into my teams is, you know, let's really help our people. Let's help our clients. Because people genuinely want to know what is actually going on. So yeah, a bit of waffle there, Ben. But
well, yeah, but a good bit of waffle. The final sentence: people want to know what's going on, and I think that's the biggest issue we've got. That the market we operate in is based on certainty and the level of certainty anyone feels at any one time. And right now, there's so much uncertainty because you can open up a paper, you can open up 3 different papers and get 3 different rhetorics because they're pushing in one direction. You know, the Telegraph, which are meant to be, you know, the paper the educated person reads, is an absolute nightmare for presenting completely incorrect data. They are pulling information and presenting it in a way that just fits with a different agenda. So it's so difficult when there's a lack of certainty and there's all this. I was on a call yesterday, Roger Martin Fagg. Anyone watching this, a load of people, probably part of the Property Academy. Roger Martin Fagg is a behavioural economist, genius level intellect, and he's great at making predictions. And I don't hear him swear. I've been on so many calls with him. And yesterday he said, I've written it down very specifically because I was going to quote it today. Transaction volumes will be down. There will be a reduction, but it's not going to be crazy like people are thinking, but there is going to be a dip. The reason there's going to be a dip is twofold: government, media. And that's what he said. I was like, well, I've never heard him. This is like a bolt out of nowhere. But he's absolutely right that poor government making poor decisions and then poor media presenting those poor decisions completely incorrectly. They're confusing the consumer base. There's this threat of a recession. There's this threat of interest rates. There's always something just around the corner. But it's like Groundhog Day for me, because we were here 9 months ago. And 9 months later, certainly it hasn't been 2021, it hasn't been 2022, but it also hasn't been 2008. So, it's about presenting correct information to the consumer base in an authentic and professional fashion, which, I think collectively as an industry, we could do loads more of that. Toby, what's your take?
Context is everything. You're absolutely right. The way that these things are presented by the media. It's no wonder when you see a news headline that screams transactions slump since May 22, that a lot of people out there will throw their hands up in the air and go, well, this sounds dreadful. But that particular headline makes me want to go, well, yeah. I mean, of course they have. In 2021 and 2022, there was a sales frenzy. And now we're in a cost of living crisis and everyone's penny pinching, negotiating hard on prices. Of course, sales are down. Because I love a stat, I actually looked at the transaction figures back to May 2015. And when you average out the transactions in every May since 2015, then May 2022 was about 13% above average. So when you take that into account, it's no wonder that we've come down from there. If you view it in a wider context, then actually compared to the average since 2015, this May was down by about 15%, as opposed to the 27 that's in the headlines. So yeah, of course, where people are being really prudent with their money, people are negotiating harder, people are saving where they can. So of course, transactions are going to be down. But also when you look at other stats, like just yesterday, Property Mark's latest Housing Insight report came out, which is based on stats from 115 sales branches across the UK. So that said that registered buyers is down year on year by 4%. So that's nowhere near in keeping with the transaction figures, which suggests there's still plenty of demand from buyers out there. So there's buyers out there and there's stock out there, which means that there's opportunity for agents with ingenuity, agents who sort of know how to work the market. So there's opportunity out there. It's just a question of whether you can help your market to escape the noise, to see things our way, and to allay some of their fears about buying and selling in the current market. Because I think a lot of people are probably deterred by the headlines, go, well, actually, it sounds a little bit of a risky time at the minute, I'm going to hang fire. But if we can help to shape this narrative through what we were talking about earlier with our work on social media and our work in the community, and actually help to encourage people to think, okay, you want to read beyond the headlines, because actually, there's property at the minute. There's it's not necessarily the worst time to buy and sell. So again, it's shaping the narrative and helping people to understand the context that these figures are being presented in. And I think that it's apples and pears to compare May 2022 with May 2023. We're in a completely different climate now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're in a desolate landscape. That there's still stock, there's still buyers. People will always need to move home through death, divorce, babies, the holy trinity of opportunity.
Oh, the 7 Ds. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Well, look, the other thing to consider is which, again, I think there's an assumption in our trade press that estate agents will know this stuff, but there's certainly not. If I speak to my mum or dad and they saw this headline, so I use my parents as a really good barometer, they've got no interest in property. Mum works in a school, dad used to be a scaffolder. They don't know property, they own their own house. They have no other investments. They're just really normal consumers. And if they were to read the headline that sales volumes are down 27%, they would assume the market in this present moment is down 27%. There's no context around. So if we're looking at completions in May, we're talking about exchanges in April. We're talking about under offer in January. So what we're really talking about is what the market was doing in January 2023 versus January 2022. And in our area of the world, January 22 was carnage. absolutely insane. It was coming out right towards the end of that crazy patch. And I would say the first half of 2022, or the first quarter of 2022, madness, slowed down quarter 2, and then quarter 3, there was a cooling, and obviously quarter 4, Liz and Kwarteng doing their thing. So what we're really looking at is the reporting. So much more is needed in terms of context. If I'm going to get really, really specific, I don't believe in macro reporting. I don't believe there's a national housing market. I know you're going to say that's because you're a moron, Ben. I appreciate you can throw all the data together and you call it a national housing market. But
no, I agree, definitely.
A 2-bed terrace in Newcastle that sells for 150 grand versus a 3-bed detached somewhere in Surrey that goes for 4 million. How? What relevance do they have to each other? So reporting on a national picture, you need to pick it apart and report on your micro markets. And where I'm looking right now, where I am, I couldn't throw a stone. I'm not that strong. But I could travel for 5 minutes in 4 different directions and have 3 different market conditions right now, which is insane. Not massively different, but enough for it to be reported in a slightly different way. There's slightly more demand in this market here because it's a bit better in terms of value for money. This high-end market, the mass market, is performing kind of lackluster, but the 1 million to 2 million is really, really popular right now. So the point I'm making is, in Northern Ireland right now, year on year, they are looking at price growth, which is insane, but it's not insane. It's just a different market. Let me throw some data at you that I got yesterday that the media is not reporting. And actually, the media is reporting almost the opposite. So did you know in the last 12 months, 53% of all sales have been to first-time buyers? Now, the media would have you believe that first-time buyers are struggling right now. They're not getting on the market. And listen, I work in a estate agency, as you all know. I don't do a lot of first-time buyer stuff because we're finding country and it's a different price point. But because I'm not in the first-time buyer market anymore and haven't been for about 2 years, I believed the media that first-time buyers are struggling. But it's the highest proportion of first-time buyers in 10 years in the last 12 months. So that's interesting to know. Also, the percentage of people's pay they are spending on housing finance, so their mortgage, is currently on average 33%. Now, we are told because of the cost of living, because of mortgage rates, and people aren't earning more, which again was a myth, that people are struggling with their financing. They're spending much more because the property prices have gone up. Actually, that's 1% above the 30-year average. People are only spending 1% more than the 30-year long run average, which again, my mind was blown. Yesterday, I'm just sitting there in awe of this wonderful data. Average earnings are up somewhere between 7 and 7.5%. And the presentation I was a part of yesterday or witnessed yesterday, the view is that there's 1.8 million mortgage renewals up in the next 18 months. And those people have been stress tested way above where they are in their current rate. And I'm not saying that's, oh, that's fine, they'll be fine. There's going to be some pain, there's going to be some pressure, and some people are going to move. They're going to sell up because they can't find a way to make the mortgage repayment work. But a load will find the way. If you think about what we've been through in COVID, the amount of financial growth, money held, savings, whatever you want to call it, grew exponentially because the amount of people at home and they weren't spending money. And I'm not saying, and the point of the behavioral economist yesterday was not saying everyone's making loads of money, it'll be really easy, but he was saying people will penny pinch, they'll reduce, they won't go on that holiday, they won't have the luxuries, but they will find a way. And maybe they'll take the mortgage over a longer period of time for the next 2 years. And then when rates come down, they'll sort themselves out. It's not the 90s, it's not 2008. There's liquidity within the system, which means banks aren't at risk even if people start to default. They've never had so much money. So these sort of things that I've just said, I hope anyone watching just rips it off and starts posting to social media, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I listen to an economist who knows what he's talking about versus a journalist who's pulling data that serves a rhetoric that they want to deliver. So I found it really, really interesting. His general view was that inflation will be down to 5% by the end of the year, and hopefully 4% by next year. And he's really good at this sort of stuff. I've been, for 10 years, I've listened to him, and he gets it right mostly. And the thing about the recession that we're being threatened with, the Bank of England are doing their best to do what they're not paid to do, and that's talk about what's coming. 12 months ago, that we were told we'd be in a recession by the end of 2022, and it hasn't arrived. 12 months later, it still isn't here. I understand the point. If you talk about a recession, people stop spending. But in this country, we don't like being told what to do. And so we're just going to keep spending. We're going to still go to the restaurant. We're still going to order the new car or whatever it might be. and we talked about it last week on the podcast, I can walk out right now and every coffee shop is just packed with people. You can have a coffee at home, cost you 8p, or you can pay £8 for a Starbucks coffee and people spend the £8. So is the recession coming? He felt as though it's not coming because there's going to be a general election at some point next year. So the government are not going to allow a recession to come through because it's going to have a massive impact on their ability to get back in. So it was really quite optimistic. Life isn't going to be, it's not all rainbows and unicorns for the rest of the year. There will be maybe some tough times and there will be less transactions. But he also said that the consumer, they're not stupid. At the end of last year, Christmas came early, which I think we all can agree, and the market stalled. And then in my particular town or area we work, when spring arrived, it was all action. It was a proper spring market, which was great because I think the consumer had spent the winter working out that this is just life. This is where we are right now. The other, final point on what I heard yesterday, which I think is valuable for the audience and maybe you guys, is that he thinks we won't see interest rates get to 6. He thinks the next 2 meetings, gradually, there's a shift in voting, and he thinks more people will vote to stick. More of the committee will vote to stay where they are at the next meet, but it will still get a small rise. And the next meeting, even more will vote to stay where we are. And the likelihood is we'll be capping out at around 5. So not like it's going to be easy. Life's not easy, but without sounding horrendously cliche, what I say to my team is cream rises to the top. And these market conditions are, tough market conditions make great agents. Strong market conditions make weak agents. The last couple of years, very interesting conditions. Right, I've waffled on long enough there. I'm not meant to do that. I'm just meant to let you guys do it. Let's get on to subject number 2. I don't know what just happened. I was just so taken by what I heard yesterday that I thought it was worth sharing. Go on, Chris.
Just on this though, what you've mentioned is there's some really good, headline attention grabbing news, right? That's really good stuff, and that's the bit that we must, as estate agents, we must get that out to our markets. And from my perspective, I think if we can focus on the positives and find those people that do really want to do this and want to move in this market, they're kind of the real key nuggets we want to take away, right? And I think I sit here and I'm thinking about some of those stats and thinking, I didn't know that. And actually, how powerful is that? If you're in someone's front room, if my listers or my managers are in someone's front room, how powerful are those stats to really get across to people? So it wasn't Waffle. I actually sat here and actually thought some really good stuff. Really good stuff.
I was blown away yesterday, and it really his point is absolutely right. Government, take them away, but media, they just I think they're letting the country down in what they're presenting. They're creating so much uncertainty. What you can literally plagiarize everything he presented yesterday. Some of it was over my head because he is, at his core, he is an economist and he talks to us like we're all economists. But some of it is brilliant. And for me, the real standout is the amount of first-time buyers. That's
absolutely
amazing.
Absolutely. And I think, like you say, if you open up, whether it be on a tablet or actually, dare I say, a newspaper, you open that news, it's not there. It really isn't there. And don't get me wrong, I don't have to dig deep in my business to find some really great stats versus this time last year. But that's only my business, right? That's our business. And I think from my perspective, if we can continue as an industry to find these really good nuggets, spread them, and make people feel more positive about it. And let's be really real. Let's not focus on house prices. House prices are, they're vanity. It's not sanity.
So let's Chris, let's segue in. Let's go straight in because Nationwide have presented on house prices. You teed me up beautifully there. We're like a double act. This is great stuff. So Nationwide have reported a monthly rise in property prices of 0.1%. So we're all getting rich. That's good news. It reverses the 0.1% reduction in pricing in May. Now, whilst I've been speaking really positively about the behavioural economist Roger Martin Flag that I saw yesterday, economists did forecast that we'd see a 0.3% fall. They were wrong. I mean, most people have been wrong over the last couple of years about what the economy and the world's going to do, and we won't hold them to account on that. But what I find most interesting is that annually, excuse me, average property prices down 3.5%. So look, where this is May data. So May 23 versus May 22, we're down 3.5%. If you look at May 20 versus May 2022, we're up in some areas about 20%. So in 3 years, we're looking at a gain of around 16%.
And I think it's important to put that across in monetary terms for your region as well. 3.5%, that means completely different figures to all four of us on this call today. And, when you're talking about the York market, or the Doncaster market, or Scarborough market, Bath or Brighton, that pound sign in front will mean a different amount to each other.
Yeah, it definitely will. Yeah, absolutely. But also that it's digging down into, on average, we're down 3.5%. There are micro markets that are not, as we said, Northern Ireland are up. So, as an average, so that means, I think the Northeast is performing really well. I'm sure I remember hearing that last month. So Chris, go on. You were going to start on. I just think,
we've as a public, the general public, we've been conditioned into thinking that high house price growth is fantastic, and if anything less is underperforming. Let's be really real here. It's house price inflation is house price inflation. We can't stop it. But I think the market is just finding its level, and I don't actually think that house price growth or house price or declining house prices is whether it's a bad thing. Let's be really real about this. It doesn't really matter. What's really, really important is, and again, I know I keep going on about it, so I do apologise, guys, but actually focusing on transacting with people that need our help. That's the really, really important thing. And if we can educate them around house prices, which is our job, it's our job as my team. It's my team's job and my job as a leader to kind of educate the general public out there to actually what's going on. Let's not get too deep into house prices. Let's really focus on why do they need to move, and if there's a real need and there's a desire and there's a motivation, do it. And I think it's really, really important that whilst that is it's an interesting stat, it doesn't go, oh wow, well let's go pump that out to the public. I think it's really important that actually we focus on what their needs are. But again, this goes back to my earlier point, Ben, and I'm getting passionate now. Sorry about this. I'm getting my soapbox here.
Don't apologise. Do it, Chris.
This goes back to my earlier point. How on earth are the general public supposed to realise what's going on if you're getting one report saying this and the HMRC data that? Now, the general public won't realise that HMRC data is probably 3 months behind. So there is so many conflicting different stories. And again, it's attention grabbing. But from my perspective, what do I think of it? It's just news. And I think it's just no. Why would we care? I think it's really, really important that we focus on our clients and actually helping the people in Brighton, Hove, and Mid Sussex and the wider community. Obviously, educate them to kind of come to the market and buy or sell or rent. Let's look at the lettings market as well. The lettings market's really good. The lettings market's very strong. So I think we've got there's a lot to be positive out there for right now, and I think it's. And this Past the Syrup podcast has actually opened my eyes to quite a few things. So I think let's focus on transactions and helping clients. Let's not worry about house prices.
Toby, Chris started on lettings. You're a resident lettings expert on this call.
Jump right in.
Chris just sets them up and just knock them out. Just go on, Toby.
Tee him up.
I love how much Chris is talking about educating. So I think our roles as sales and lettings agents has evolved so much in the last few years. And there's so much that we need to do now beyond selling and letting in terms of educating, in terms of being PR and marketing experts and getting our videos out there. Because you're absolutely right. The headlines tell you naff all. Fine. Prices went up 0.1%. You're never going to have a conversation with a client about what they're going to do with their extra 0.1%. You're going to have a conversation about why you need to sell or why you need to let, and identifying the sales or rental value of your property in your town for that particular type of property. And it is so crucial to get a proper evaluation because that has such a knock-on effect. And actually, before I get onto the the letting side of things, I think quite relevant is, I don't know if anyone was at the Property Mart 1 conference last week. There was a really insightful talk by Tim Bannister from Rightmove, who he brought out all kinds of data churned out by Rightmove, and who love them or loathe them, and who loves them. They do have a lot of data. And a lot of this revolved around accurate pricing of properties. And they had this whole set of data that was based on properties that have been reduced in price on the sales market, and how they are 10% less likely to go sold subject to contract. They're 50% more likely to fall through after an offer's been accepted by the vendor. And it's almost like that price reduction affects the transaction further down the line, because you're losing trust, whatever it is from your purchaser. So again, educating your client base about the importance of a proper valuation, and not just going with the highest figure, because I'm sure there's agents who are probably still trotting out market appraisals based on 2021, 2022 data just to secure instructions. So educating your clients, helping them to understand what it's going to take to sell or let their property, and concentrating on the things that really matter above and beyond these headlines about transactions or 0.1% price increases. That's not what matters to them. They might think it is, but it's not. We have to help them to learn why. But yeah, the rental market is a funny one at the minute, because there's so many people who want to rent, and there's hardly any property. And actually, one of the other things from that Rightmove presentation was the fact that more rental properties are transferring onto the sales market than sales properties are coming into the rental market, which probably sounds obvious, but it just fuels that whole thing about undersupply in the rental market, which is driving up rents and generally making life hard for tenants in terms of rental inflation. So there's
actually, I find that quite interesting, Toby. So more rental properties are selling up than sales properties going into rental, which, if you believe, supposedly that people aren't buying anymore. 2008, we launched our first business. 2008, the sales market overnight just turned off, and we became a letting specialist, because people were sitting on properties. They still needed a larger home to move to, but they couldn't get finance, so they decided to rent their property and go rent something else. So whilst it might sound obvious to you, I don't think that's necessarily obvious to everyone that that's the direction of travel for the different stock.
I think there's probably a lot of properties currently in lettings limbo, in purgatory, on the market, not selling. A lot of letting agents waiting to find out whether they're going to come back and become rental stock later in the year, which is quite plausible. But yeah, the general flow seems to be at the moment, landlords, for whatever reason, perhaps deterred by mortgage rates or by income legislation, considering relieving themselves of some of their portfolio, or if they're more likely, if they're single property landlords, just getting out of the sector altogether. That's the main concern for rental professionals at the minute, and it ties into so many of the issues we've already been discussing about educating and helping to manage your landlord's fears and actually understand rental reforms and how they might not be the end of the world at all. So sales and lettings agents are having to do a lot of the same work here in terms of reassuring and educating their client base. And I think if you're an agency that doesn't really see yourself as an educator or a marketer, then you're probably not reaching a lot of your potential client base and getting these kind of messages out that will really help to reassure and win over clients.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We work on this cycle. We've worked on it for years. That the journey to, being a persuasive salesperson, encouraging someone to work with you, starts with professionalism, then trust, then rapport, then you move to urgency. But the first three, what I find is, or maybe it's not so much anymore, but it used to be everyone was obsessed with the sales skill part, the urgency, the creating to point of tension and closing a deal, but they forget the importance of the professionalism, the trust, and the rapport first. And most salespeople are quite likable; they're good with the rapport bit. But the trust and the professionalism, which I think is where that's where the elite really come into their own. Because professionalism, actually, for me, just don't get it wrong. That's actually professionalism. Just don't make a wrong first impression. Don't deliver things in the wrong way. Make sure you present effectively. But the trust, for me, is the data. It's the experience. It's my ability to talk about what's happened the last 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, but also where we are right now in the market and where we see things going in the next 6 months, without making a prediction, but this is the position we find ourselves in. That genuine experience, and I've done it from this market, and this is what should happen in this market, but I think to get you the best price, we need to X. That's where I think, unfortunately, for a lot of agents who have joined this industry in the last few years, they may struggle with that piece because they haven't worked through circumstances that maybe require them to know that level of data. Actually, the last couple of years, stick it on, see what happens, and arguably it just takes care of itself.
This is where really good client management comes into it as well, isn't it, Ben? Is making sure that you're touching base with your clients on a weekly, daily, weekly basis, whatever that setup may be, and actually ensuring that they are educated, and that something that I'm really trying to continue to kind of teach is we've got to make sure that the client is understanding about the housing market. And I saw so much of it in my early days of estate agency. Deals would just be tried to be tied up just for the agent's need, but actually if you focus on the client's need and find out what their real pain is and why they need to why they need to sell, and why they need why this offer, it does look really good on paper. And actually if we've done a good job up to that point of the offer being tabled, then we really it shouldn't be a push to get this agreed. And touching on pricing, I think it's really important that we need to chuck the kitchen sink at making sure that the public are educated to overpricing right now, and making sure that the agents just aren't slinging it on and trying to buy an instruction. I know we could talk, this goes down a rabbit hole, I know, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that as well, in terms of actually of pricing, and not just chucking any old listing onto the market. I think it's really important to work with motivated clients that want to move and that want our help, and making sure we're actually giving them good, honest advice as well. It's really important.
I think there's so much said for compassion, Chris. I think that touches on what you're saying, showing genuine compassion, because we are in hard times. And a lot of people might not be wanting to sell, understanding people's motivation for needing to sell, needing to buy, or needing to let. And I think in the current climate, if you just go in with a brash sales pitch, then you stand so little chance against somebody who's showing compassion and understanding for the needs and situation of their clients. I think that,
and it's so true. I think Ben, you've mentioned professionalism, trust, and rapport. I've scribbled it down as PTR on my book, and then urgency at the back end. So I think the professionalism, and the trust element is probably one of the biggest sticking points in our industry right now, and probably will be for a long time. And something that I'm really, it's really important, and it's embedded in me, is to make sure that that we do win people's trust. Trust is a huge important part during this transaction, and they have to trust us. And I often say, if we don't get that across, we haven't won the instruction because they've not trusted us enough, and that's a fact. And as much as it's a bitter pill to swallow sometimes to kind of to my teams, we don't win instruction. We weren't good enough on the day. We didn't win their trust.
I mean, the two. If you messed up in terms of professionalism, then it's seriously back to the drawing board, because there's some box ticking there that just you've just presented the right way. But trust and rapport. If I trust you and I like you, then it's an absolute no-brainer. Of course, I'm going to work with you. If I don't trust you and I like you, maybe we go on a date. If I trust you and I don't like you, maybe you're my doctor. But trust and like, then I'm married, by the way. So Pauline, I hope you're not watching this. I don't go on dates with people I don't trust. Lost train of thought there. Right, back to it. Sorry. Okay, Chris, just want to come back to something you said, and I think so. We're talking about educating the consumer right now. The other thing I think we do need to do is work on educating the estate agency world. And I don't want to pontificate here, because I don't know. 20 years ago, I didn't know what I do now, and I think what we should be doing, those of us who have enough experience, should be helping educate the rest of the sector. And it's not you're doing it wrong, do this. It's if everyone's better, then it forces my team to be better. We all level up. And I've got this really out there concept that if I can get every competing agent surrounding us right now charging 2%, we can charge 3% because we're better than you guys. So if we can help you guys charge more, we can charge more, but you can't charge more if you're going to continue to operate at this level. We're going to have to all move it up a little bit. One of the things that's a real bugbear for me, and I mean like proper miserable old git, is when I see on social media people talking about their buyer as their client. It drives me round the bend. I got my buyer's deal agreed. No, that you didn't. You shouldn't have. You've completely worked for the wrong person.
Yeah.
And I think it's lack of education. These, they haven't maybe gone through the same schooling as we did when there were, there's different models out there right now, which maybe set you free to do things on your own with less experienced people sitting in the same room as you, for example. So yeah, I think there's a lot of education consumer side, but also as an industry, we've got plenty we can do. Completely agree on the pricing point. I've got this nirvana sort of concept, right? Imagine, I can come up with these weird, stupid things all the time, but from a consumer perspective, there is zero reporting on property prices, ever. There's nothing they can access that tells them what their home is worth. You can't discover if prices are going up, they're going down. To get a valuation, they have to call an estate agent. We go around and give them the price. Now, as long as there's a moral issue here and everyone's giving correct valuations, let's say they get 5 agents round, and between the 5, you're going to work out the 3 that give me the right price, the one who's doing the hype, and the one who hasn't got a clue what they're doing. There would be no issue with, oh, well, I don't want to sell this year because prices are down, because you don't know what they did last year. All you're going to look at as a consumer is price now versus purchase price. Does that help me achieve what I want to in the future? That nirvana, madness, but I mean, look at what that does for us. Imagine we just appeal to the government, turn the media off.
Yeah. How can we get that?
That's the way to go, right?
That's
got to be the way to go. There's more and more data out there, and I know, ignorance is bliss. But in this case, I think it would be wonderful. A good bit of ignorance, a good dose of ignorance, and then there's so much less impact, because right now, there's no doubt about it. We meet a new client, property prices are down 3.5%, or property prices are up 16.5% on 3 years. But they're only thinking about the last year. Well, I don't want to sell at a loss. I'm 3.5% down. I'm going to wait another year. But you've owned the property for 27 years.
Yeah.
What are we talking about right now? But, that's a good, anyway, silly rant.
I think it's not a silly philosophy. I think, it's utopia world right now, right? But I think it's really important. And listen, I guarantee you, all of us in our markets, I know that I've had two offices that have had just ridiculous activity on 3 or 4 certain units. And actually, imagine if that was reported, that actually we had, multiple offers on this, multiple offers on that. There is clearly a demand out there. And I guarantee you, in every single estate agency business up and down the country, there'll be those examples. It's not just unique to Mission Mackay and Chris Thew's, sales team. It's a genuine thing that's happening out there right now. But we've got to be able to kind of push through it and identify that and educate.
You know what? Because me and Chris Watkins, we get on well. We do a show every now and again. I speak to him at least once a week. He contributes to this show. But there's plenty of things we don't necessarily 100% align on, agree on. And I know one of his things is, stop willy waving. Don't post when you're successful. Or if you are going to post when you're successful, tell a good story around it. Give it some context. Don't make it, look what I just did achieve. But he has such a wide reach over people that use social media that potentially he suppressed some of the good news that used to get pummeled out there. And I encourage my team, every time you agree something, and they don't actually, they end up posting all the other stuff, which is great. But don't forget, the consumer is expecting to instruct someone that's successful. There has to be some proof, and you don't have to use your social media. Shouldn't just be sell. I mean, amazing if it could be, but we're not selling that many properties. But you need to have a nice mix: no instruction, under offer, exchange, completion, customer journey, whatever it might be. But I would just say, don't be scared to post your successes. Don't make it all about you, and you tell the story of the consumer and how you help them and that sort of stuff. But you're right. We do a lot of launch events for our properties. So we'll do them on a Saturday. We'll have a lot of people attend, and we'll get multiple offers. And in the last 5 weeks, we've had 4. 3 are under offer. The other one was on Saturday. And every time, so as in just Saturday just gone, so the offers have started coming in. But every week we're selling a property with that methodology because there's competition for the property. but no one's talking about how many people want to buy these properties. Just talking about how many fewer buyers there are out there and how many fewer transactions there are. But on the ground, anecdotally, honestly, in our business, we're not really feeling that way. We're really not. So, yeah. Francis, anything you want to add before we move on?
No, I think Chris has done really well in getting our thoughts across, to be honest. So
once I get my soapbox, Francis, I'm sorry.
I think just to add, you touched on like and trust. We call it the KLT formula: know, like, trust. So, if they get to know you before you even come out, then they get to like you when you do go out, and then they trust you. You're setting yourself up for getting that instruction. And I think it all comes down to, I win a lot more instructions and respect from clients by just telling them how it is. Look, this is how long your property would have sold 2 years ago. It's not 2 years ago. This is the average time now. And if we get to this point, we might need to look at revising the price. As long as you're managing their expectations and you're not setting yourself up to fail ultimately, because as you say, some valuers are still going out giving 2021, 2020 prices just to get that signature on the dotted line and get them to market. You're gonna get, you're gonna get a lot more recommendations, and you're gonna get spoke about for good reasons.
For being authentic, you get spoken about, Francis, and it's one of my favourite words. And it's become a bit of a buzzword, which is a shame because we had it as a core value years ago, and now everyone's bloody using it. But it's so it's so true, because people can see through the nonsense, can't they? Most of the time, until you give them a high number, and then greed kicks in, and they're not worried about seeing through the nonsense. But the truth is, because I know Francis, because we're part of the Final Country Network, and we've met a few times, and we've done different sessions together. And Francis is 100% authentic. She is what she is, and tells how it is. But people really love that. Harry in our team is downstairs right now. He is so authentic. At times, I have to say to him, "Rein it in a bit, soften it up, Harry. You're going to break her heart. Like, let's just, deliver it. You just make it a little bit more palatable." But people absolutely love it because he's no nonsense, and
that's where. Sorry, Ben.
Go on, Chris. Go on.
No, I was going to say that's where surrounding yourselves, as leaders, surrounding yourselves with really, really good people and a really good team is absolutely paramount right now. And what I would say is, some of my team have got quite youthful experience, and they're a lot younger and better looking than me. But it's what's really, really important is actually, showing them what good looks like. I hate that saying, but it's really true. Showing them what good needs to look like, surrounding yourself with really, really good people. And we will all get through this storm if we surround ourselves with really good people, educate and train our people. That's what's really, really important, to be authentic, to be real, to be professional, to be trust, and to basically, like you say, most estate agents, if they're worth their salt, they'll be able to rapport build. So I think it's, from my perspective.
And I think as well, if you come to terms with the fact that you are not going to be the agent for everybody, you're not going to win and have 100% conversion. The sooner you come to terms with, you know what, we're just not for this client, or maybe we are, but am I going to be, over egging myself to meet their demands, sort of thing. I think for us agents, if you grasp that, then you're not going to be as fearful, really, when you are delivering presentations, because you're thinking, well, I want this one, and I want this one, I want this one. You've got to flip it round and think, well, do I actually want this one? Can I actually help this client?
I think having that philosophy actually with the client as well is really refreshing. It's really disarming. And I quite often say to people, perhaps sometimes I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I say, we might actually not be the best in town. I don't think there is a best in town. I think there's like 20 best in town, but we've got to work out if I'm the best for you. And it's about best fit. Every single agency will tell you that they're the best. So how do you actually work out who is? It's not about who's the best, it's who's the best fit for you. And I think acknowledging that actually we might not be the best fit for you is really disarming. And again, it builds that trust. Just acknowledging that kind of, and having the humility to do that.
I think especially from a lettings perspective, you win a lettings client, you might be in bed together for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And So we introduced a policy years ago where we encourage the team, the heads of each department, to sack 2 clients every year. Who are the 2 on your roster that take up 50% of your time? We need to find a polite way to say this is not working out. Having that, being in a position to say this. Look, you don't like us, we don't like you. We're doing the best job we can. Nothing is ever good enough. You're like a wife I need to divorce, but I can't get rid of you. I've got 3 kids. I've got to keep you in my life. We just need to. Sorry, Paulina. We haven't had a row last night. I don't know why I'm delivering all this.
And it's funny how essential you suddenly come to that client when you say to that client, actually, it's not really working out, and suddenly they don't want to go. You're like, well, look, we hate you. You hate us. Let's just part ways. Like, but I don't want to go. Why not?
Everyone wants what they can't have. As soon as you say I'm not available, they're interested. Right. Great work, guys. I reckon we're about an hour in. So subject number 3 is scrapped. We're going to move on to the way we've done this over the last few episodes is combine it with a great agent you've worked with or someone you think should be. So this is a real opportunity for you to put someone on a pedestal. I think it's a real positive to highlight great agents and allow anyone viewing to use social media to follow them, to see what sort of content they're producing. If that fits, if it doesn't, it doesn't. Some guys have spoke about people that are actually out of the industry anymore, but who they are, what makes them brilliant. And then if you could also segue into one piece of advice, if you give one piece of advice right now to agents watching what they should do or could do, what would it be? Who would like to go first?
I'm still trying to think of one person for social media because there's so many great agents that are doing that, to be honest.
So, although, Francis, it doesn't have to be social. If you want to talk about a great agent and they're not that prolific on social media, but they're a great agent worth shouting out, you do whatever you'd rather. Toby, you look like you're ready to go. You look ready to pop.
I'm locked and loaded.
Do it, Toby. Tell us.
So actually, they're not prolific on social media, so you'll have to search them out in real life and follow them literally.
Wow, getting very stalkerish. Okay.
Michael Sears is a chap who has afforded me a lot of time. He is the boss of Sears Walker Jarvis, who are based in Gravesend. He's a really experienced agent, and he has built that company up to really be the dominant force on his patch. I bumped into him through networking events many years ago, and he has been very generous with his time and insight. There's several things I admire about Michael. One is he just has clear goals, and he follows through on them. He is incredibly good about separating time to work on his business as opposed to in it. And that is a discipline which I really admire, which I struggle with myself on a daily. He also showed me that it's something that's really quite pertinent to me. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. Personally, myself, I'm a shy, retiring type. I'm a bit of an introvert, despite all the conversation about gastroenteritis at the start of the call. I am, as far as this industry goes, you meet some larger than life characters. And I remember having all sorts of dilemmas about whether I could really go far without being the loudest person in the room. And Michael is a quiet, considered guy. And he's shown me that you can be effective working in that way. So yeah, hugely knowledgeable across all disciplines. And a very generous guy. So he is on LinkedIn. He's not completely active on there, so you can give him a follow. But certainly, if you ever bump into him, he's worth chatting with.
Good stuff. And what would your one piece of advice be that agents should be or could be doing right now?
Well, I think that it's the thing that has made the most difference to me in my sort of professional development is embracing video. Which feels like a fairly obvious one because we're recording a video podcast, but so I'm maybe preaching to the choir. I still think it's a really big opportunity because I still think that the amount of people doing this are really quite thin on the ground. So I still think that there is an opportunity to be one of the kind of early adopters of properly doing video. And in terms of your local market, the likelihood is wherever you work, there's probably not very many people doing that and sharing those videos with their local market and with their client base. So it's still an opportunity to set yourself apart. So I would say, don't have fear of the camera, do it on a regular basis and keep doing it until you're at home with it, and you won't look back.
Great advice. I couldn't agree more. Video. Get your reps in. You're only going to get comfortable once you're comfortable. And to get comfortable, it takes absolute repetition, make it habitual. Chris, over to you, sir.
Yeah, so I suppose there's two, but the number one was a guy that actually gave me my first job in a estate agency, a guy called Kevin Peel. Long, I think, been retired now, but gave me that opportunity when I was 19 years of age. And truthfully, I suppose I fell into, I think, I don't, anyone wakes up opens their curtains in the morning and goes, oh, I'm going to be an estate agent, right? But so I think, I fell into a estate agency. Kevin gave me the opportunity, and forever I'll be thankful for that, really, because it runs in me, estate agency, leadership, people, being on the sales floors still give me absolute excitement, watching people develop. And if it wasn't for that initial first interview, I wouldn't be here. So from my perspective, that kind of always resonates with me. And I suppose also secondly is Alex Mackay, who's the co-founder and owner of Mission Mackay. A fantastic guy to work alongside, and gives me some great advice. It levels me sometimes, because I can be quite passionate and like a dog with a bone sometimes, but gives me that ability to kind of see things from a different angle. So there's two people that really stick out in my career, Kevin and Alex. Okay, very nice. And is Alex on LinkedIn for a follow? I think he's on LinkedIn. Alex uses it a lot. Okay. No doubt he'd be watching this podcast. But yeah, and I don't think Kevin is either. Okay. But yeah. But it's nice to shout them out. It's nice to shout them out. It's important that the reason that I do what I do is obviously is finding my why. But without these two individuals, I wouldn't be sat here in this very seat. So I think it's important. Okay, very nice. Your piece of advice for agents? Educate. We got last week. I think it was last week's episode. We said what we're finding here is quite often we're saying the same stuff over and over again. The basics, the fundamentals absolutely work. Continuously educate, train, innovate, diversify, get the basics right, and then engage the new stuff like video. Although, your video is not necessarily new now. It will be for a lot of agents, but it's, and education's free right now, isn't it? You just jump online. It's everywhere. You don't have to pay for it. Absolutely. Okay, great. Francis, big finish. No pressure.
I'm ready. Ready. All right. So I'm thinking big now. And this is a lady who really inspires me personally. She's an Australian agent at Novak Properties. Lisa Novak, if you've heard of her before.
Okay.
And she is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to educating, giving unreal service. She's got fantastic success stories as well. She is 150%, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Not that I'm saying that that's good for you, but she just shows what can be achieved with that consistency and determination. She's massive on socials. Her and her husband have got an amazing real estate agency in Australia, and they are an advocate of helping our younger people get into estate agency as well. So it's a great fit for anybody, in my opinion. LinkedIn they're on, Facebook they're on, Instagram they're on. There's no fancy editing. They're really authentic. It's just the message that they nail every single post.
I'm genuinely excited to get off this call, not because I've had enough of you three, but because I want to go check out Lisa Novak. I really want to go check it out now. Okay, great shout, Francis. So this is the big finish. Final piece of advice. What should or could agents be doing right now to win?
Okay, so get close to completed buyers and completed sellers. They've dealt with you before. They are obviously going to be feeling nervous. and you don't have to break any ice because you've built up a relationship with them, especially people over, you know, sort of who moved 3 years ago, 3 years plus. They might be being affected by the new interest rates. You can help them endlessly, whether that's, you know, selling again, renting, buying another property. I'm in my second and third cycle now with some of my clients in my 11 years, where I'm on to, you know, the second or third property that I'm selling for them and helping them move again. And that's because I stay very close to them following completion.
Very nice. Very nice. So I heard, this is somebody else's line, but I've stolen it. Why would you call a past client? Why are they past? Why are they just not your client? If you regard them as past, then you park them over there and you forget about them. But your client, if you sold them a property or sold for or helped buy, they should be in your little black book for the rest of their lives. And that's fantastic advice, by the way, Francis. Anyone who bought 4 or 5 years ago has got some serious equity in their property right now and might want to trade up, might want to trade down. They might want to look at what the rates are doing and move on. Fantastic advice. Absolutely couldn't agree with it more. And that, guys, brings us to a conclusion.
Wow.
It's been emotional. It's been wonderful.
Yes.
Toby, you survived.
Thank you.
Highlight of the day.
Thank God for that.
Thank God. Praise the Lord.
There you go now.
So thank you so much, guys. I think you've been brilliant. Really, really great content. A couple of quite dry subjects, in truth, transaction levels and house prices, but you made it, you know, absolutely mildly entertaining. So good work. All we need to do is say goodbye now. Hand over to Chris, who does his Watkins Whimsy every week to sign us out. Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
How many of the last 50 valuations that you have done as an estate agent have come about because of your direct actions? Be that a door knock, an actual letter that you wrote and put through the door, or someone actually picked the phone up to you or sent you a message through social media or a text message. Because if you're an employed estate agent and you left tomorrow, that's the number of people that would ring you up for a free valuation. So here's a thought. Why don't you start building your personal brand now so you can actually benefit and your employer can benefit from it now? But in the future, if things change, you've got a steady stream of people wanting to come and give you business with valuations and properties on the market. It's just a thought.